Recently, I saw this thumbnail, and I immediately thought, wow, that can't be right. Chess has changed loads in the last 200 years. Surely this is just clickbait. So I googled, and I found out pretty quickly that yes, this is definitely wrong. But that's not the interesting question. The interesting question is, how wrong is it? When did the rules of chess last really change? The answer is complex, and opinions will vary. So I'm going to give you 3 different options that I think are viable, and let you decide. FIDE, the International Chess Federation, regularly updates the rules of chess every few years. And it's a pretty long and specific document that includes the entire rules of chess as well as lots of competition-specific stuff. But the most recent change wasn't even in this handbook's last update, but in 2024 to the FIDE rating regulations, where FIDE changed the 400-point rule, better known as the Hikaru Nakamura Infinite Elo Glitch.
Welcome back, everyone.
As I make this video, Hikaru Nakamura is playing a series of US State Opens, playing players 600 to 1,000 points lower rated than him. Unsurprisingly, he's winning all these games, and for each win, he's gaining a very specific 0.8 points per game. Why? Under the chess elo system, gains for beating someone much lower rated than you are tiny. If you beat someone 500 points below you, you are entitled to 0.5 points if you win, and lose 9.5 if you lose. At 700 points, that drops to 0.1 elo, and FIDE gives up defining anything beyond 800 elo. The 400 point difference rule basically says, anything that's more than 400 rating point difference, let's just pretend it's a 400 point difference, and rate the games accordingly. This isn't actually new, it's existed for at least 2 decades, but in 2022 a little caveat was added to the 400 point rule. In any tournament, a player may benefit from only one upgrade under this rule, for the game in which the rating difference is greatest. This was no doubt intended against farming lower rated players, but was so unpopular that after a consultation on changes in 2023, it was scrapped the year after. Thus, Nakamura gets 0.8 rating points for a win, and we have our very first, very minor rule change. Before I could finish editing this video, FIDE changed the rules again, so now anyone above 2650 can no longer benefit from this upgrade rule, making 2025 the most recent change to the rating regulations, though still not a real rule change. Now, what about the actual rules of chess? In 2023, FIDE updated the rules governing competitive rated competition. Pronouns were now inclusive, which is a definitely needed change, but it didn't functionally affect the rules. They changed the penalties for illegal moves in over-the-board rapid and blitz games from 2 minutes to 1 minute, which has some impact on a small set of games, but doesn't change the core of chess. My favourite rule change from 2023 is that they made it very slightly harder to resign. The rules now say if you resigned, but your opponent cannot possibly checkmate you through any series of legal moves, then you didn't resign. It was just a prank. And the game is declared a draw. Interestingly, this rule is not implemented on Lichess, which is a rare diversion from the FIDE rules. In 2018, there were loads of changes. You now officially can't castle with 2 hands. There were also more changes to illegal moves. It seems like illegal moves are just really difficult to write into the rules well. And if you like to write longer forms of chess notation like saying h2 to h4, well now FIDE says that's okay. That's all good, but chess still hasn't changed in a meaningful way. 2014 saw the introduction of the 75 move rule and the 5-fold repetition rule we use today. You see, before 2014 there existed the 50 move rule and the 3-fold repetition rule, which meant that if 50 moves happened with no capture or pawn move, or the exact same position occurred 3 times, then the game could be claimed as a draw. We still have those rules now, almost completely unchanged. What changed was that after 75 moves, or 5 repetitions, the position just is a draw. No claim needed. This is still incredibly niche at any competitive level, but we are at least seeing rules that have probably influenced the outcomes of some games. 2001 was the year FIDE specified rules for blind or visually impaired players, which is awesome. Not really what we're looking for, but really cool. 1997 didn't change much, and I started to get bored after reading the 1993 rules. They reworded more things, but nothing consequential has changed to the rules of chess now between 1993 and 2025. And I was beginning to give up hope, and say, Gotham Chess was about right. But then I read the 1989 rules. In the 1989 rule set, the 50 move rule, where the game was a draw after 50 moves with no pawn advance or capture, has specified exceptions. You needed to remember that if you were in any of the following circumstances, you actually had 75 moves, not 50, because players at the time thought that these positions took more than 50 moves to reach the next capture. This is, in my opinion, the first real candidate for when the rules of chess are fundamentally a bit different. Even if you are never directly affected by this, it changes whether some positions are winning and gives an attacking side more actual moves to try and win than later rule sets. This rule also notably changes how easy it is to get certain records in chess, with many of chess's longest competitive games coming when this rule allowed completely absurd amounts of shuffling in an endgame. If you think this is a change to the rules of chess, this would put the last time chess was played under different rules as 33 years ago, 1992. I won't continue to cover this rule's specific history, but it was reformed many times throughout the 20th century because people felt it was perverse to have a position that would be winnable with infinite moves that couldn't be won in a practical game because of arbitrary rule restrictions. They might be right, but the 1928 rules meant a rook and bishop versus rook endgame allowed 132 moves not to capture. That is just not pragmatic today. You might disagree with me and think that's not really a chess rule change. And if so, that's fine. Your stop on the train doesn't end here. For you, we must delve deeper into the past. In the previous rule changes dating back to FIDE's first official rules, a lot happens. But there's no rule change that is more fundamental to the game than the 50 move rule change that took place. No pieces move differently, no other drawing rules are substantively different. In fact, the 1928 rules, or the English translation in 1931, are shocking in how modern and complete they are. It wasn't mandatory to say check, and you could write in algebraic notations, which really surprised me as the old descriptive format was used for decades afterwards. If we want to find some truly game-breaking rule changes, we have to go to the 19th century, the time of Paul Morphy, Wilhelm Steinitz, of romance in the evergreen chess game, where we had the first world champions and the pioneers of modern chess. We also had deeply racist societies built on colonial exploitation. Before the late 19th century, white did not move first. Either colour could start the game. Through gradual change and a desire for standardization of chess literature through the second half of the 19th century, the orthodoxy slowly shifted towards having white move first in each game. The 1903 British Chess Code suggested that white goes first, and by 1912 the British Chess Federation rules were absolute. White had the first move. Whether this rule change was the result of racism is disputed. There isn't solid evidence that I know of that it was, but we would have to be naive to believe that the gradual changes that stemmed from the 1850s weren't influenced by racism, especially when pieces were constantly referred to as white men and black men. In any case, this rule change is fundamental to how we play the game of chess, even if it makes no difference to the evaluations on a chessboard. Black moving first would be unrecognizable to a 2025 chess player. If this is your stop on the rule change train, then I would conservatively put this as 1912, or 113 years ago. But practically, it changed in games decades before that date. This is when things get really tricky. Major chess rule changes are centuries older than 1900. Chess was modernized in the 15th century, and by the time of Ruy Lopez in 1561, we already have the modern system of castling in one move, and already use modern rules of en passant. In the 16th century, the pieces moved the same as today. But Ruy Lopez was writing in Spain, and the best chess-playing nation of the 16th to 18th centuries was Italy. And the Italians read the rules and considered the new rules and just said no. Italy wrote its own rule set where en passant just didn't exist. They also allowed castling where you put the king directly in the corner and the rook straight in the middle. They kept playing these rules for another 300 years after the writings of Ruy Lopez, only changing them in 1881. If you want to know the last time pieces moved differently in chess, the answer is 1880 in Italy. Unless you wish to board the sleeper train back to the 15th century, this is where I recommend you get off and enjoy the Italian food and wine. Was Levy wrong? Yes. But honestly, not by much. 200 years is a reasonable, if inexact, answer to this question. This question has at least 3 answers, and though none of them are 200 years, None of them are the definitive answer either. 1992, 1911, and 1880 are all reasonable answers to this question. Personally, I think it's 1992, but you might have a different opinion.